My $12,000 custom ATV just got stolen, right out of my driveway. The thief? The 19-year-old daughter of our HOA president. I'm Garrett Steele, disabled vet. Afghanistan took my leg. That ATV was 8 months of custom hand controls, my only ride to VA appointments. It's my freedom. She peeled out laughing, doing donuts in my yard, flipping me off. Her mom smirked.
Brooklyn's untouchable around here. Deal with it.
Rich family, they said. Nothing we can do. That's when I smiled. Because I'm not just a vet. I'm a combat engineer. I don't just build machines, I build traps. They call her untouchable? Watch what happens next. She's about to learn the hard way. What would you do if some entitled brat stole your lifeline and laughed? Drop your revenge stories below. Ever clashed with an untouchable HOA family? Tag your state. 3 years ago, I thought I'd found paradise in Willowbrook Estates, Arizona. Quiet suburb, 847 homes, perfect for a broken vet who just wanted peace. The VA said, build something with my hands. Therapy. So I built an ATV from scratch. 8 months of blood, sweat, and healing. Every bolt I tightened was a piece of my mind put back together. The rough texture of that custom-molded seat designed around my prosthetic became my throne of independence. Morning desert air carried hints of creosote and engine oil from my garage, the smell of freedom being rebuilt one wrench turn at a time. Then Delilah Thornfield declared war. Picture every HOA nightmare you've heard, then add inherited money and a real estate license. Delilah's 48, lives in a $750,000 corner mansion while controlling our $300,000 neighborhood like her personal kingdom. Most neighbors keep their heads down. Retired teacher Meredith Hendricks, pool guy Carlos Vega, working families who can't afford legal battles. First week, violation notice slapped on my door. Unauthorized vehicle storage, bylaw 47C, 500 daily fine starts in 72 hours. I researched the bylaw. Applies to commercial vehicles only. Mine's medical equipment, ADA protected. Next HOA meeting, community center reeking of industrial carpet cleaner and stale coffee. I came armed with facts. Mrs. Thornfield, my ATV qualifies as durable medical equipment under federal law. Her manicured nails drummed the fake wood table. That sharp clicking still makes my skin crawl. Do you know who I am, Mr. Steele? I am this community. Recreational vehicles are recreational vehicles, period. Classic Karen move. When facts fail, pull rank. Then you'll remove your real estate signs from your garage? Same bylaw violation? Her face flushed red. The metallic taste of victory filled my mouth as board members shifted uncomfortably. That's when Brooklyn walked in. 19, kicked out of college for academic probation. Rich speak for partying too hard. $300 designer sneakers squeaked against linoleum as she slumped into a chair, already filming me for social media content. Mom, she announced loudly, is this the weird military guy causing problems? Delilah's smile turned predatory. Brooklyn, meet Mr. Steele. He thinks his disability gives him special rights above everyone else. The condescension dripped like poison. I've heard that tone before, from bullies who think uniforms and medals are just costumes. Whatever, Brooklyn said, not looking up from her phone. Daddy says these people always fold when you apply the right pressure. The board voted 4-3 to table my violation pending investigation. Small victory, but I knew this was psychological warfare now. Walking to my car, I overheard mother and daughter plotting in the parking lot. Don't worry, sweetheart, Delilah whispered. There are other ways to handle problem residents who don't know their place. Brooklyn's laugh was pure ice. Perfect. I'm literally untouchable around here anyway. Chief Martinez is Daddy's golf buddy, and Judge Watson owes us favors. My blood froze. Corruption ran deeper than HOA bylaws. That night, I researched Thornfield Realty. Delilah held our management contract, controlling both enforcement and vendor selection. Every emergency repair went to her overpriced contractors. She wasn't just power tripping. She was systematically looting our community. Here's your knowledge nugget. HOA financial records are public documents. Request them at the county courthouse. Most residents never bother reading the fine print, which is exactly how tyrants maintain control. I started building evidence files, photos, timestamps, witness statements. If these entitled parasites wanted war, they'd picked the wrong combat engineer. 3 days later, Brooklyn made her first move. Midnight engine revving outside my house, beer cans thrown at my garage, tire tracks across my lawn. When neighbors called security, guess who answered? "Kids will be kids," Delilah announced dismissively. No violations occurred. The next morning, Brooklyn cornered me at my mailbox. Her designer perfume couldn't mask the stench of privilege and entitlement. "Nice ATV, soldier boy," she sneered. "Be a real shame if something happened to it." Message received loud and clear. They thought money and connections made them untouchable. They had no idea what real power looked like when you stopped playing by rigged rules. The war for Willowbrook had begun. 2 weeks later, Delilah called an emergency board meeting. The agenda? Immediate resolution of ongoing vehicle violations. I showed up ready for battle, but nothing prepared me for the ambush waiting inside. The community center was packed, not with concerned neighbors, but with Delilah's personal army. Her real estate cronies filled the front rows, along with country club friends who probably couldn't find Willowbrook on a map. The smell of expensive perfume mixed with nervous sweat created an atmosphere thick with manufactured outrage. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps. "Ladies and gentlemen," Delilah announced from her makeshift throne, "we're here to address a serious threat to our community's property values." She clicked a remote. A projector screen filled with photos of my ATV taken from multiple angles, clearly shot from inside my garage during my absence. This commercial vehicle operates daily in violation of noise ordinances, disturbs wildlife, and poses insurance liability risks. Pure fiction, delivered with courtroom confidence. That's when Brooklyn made her entrance. 20 minutes late, designer coffee in hand, treating the whole proceeding like entertainment. The click of her $300 heels against linoleum announced her arrival before she even spoke. "Sorry I'm late, everyone," she announced, not sorry at all. "Had to document the environmental damage this thing causes to our beautiful desert." She swiped through photos on her phone, my tire tracks on public trails, completely legal riding areas. But to her audience of enablers, it looked like ecological terrorism. Time for my counterattack. I stood up, remembering something my VA lawyer had drilled into me during our consultation. Federal disability protections trump local bylaws every single time. The ADA doesn't negotiate with HOA power trips. "Mrs. Thornfield, I have here federal certification from the Department of Veterans Affairs classifying my ATV as essential medical equipment under the Americans with Disabilities Act." The papers rustled like thunder as I distributed copies to each board member. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act specifically prohibits discrimination based on disability accommodation. Delilah's eye twitched. She wasn't expecting legal ammunition. "Furthermore," I continued, pulling out my phone, "I have photographic evidence of commercial equipment stored in violation of the same bylaws you're enforcing against me." The photos filled my screen. Delilah's garage packed with for sale signs, lockboxes, staging furniture. Enough commercial inventory to stock a real estate office. Bylaw 47C clearly states, "No commercial equipment storage." Your violation has existed for 3 years, generating approximately $54,000 in accumulated fines. Dead silence. Even Brooklyn stopped filming. Board President Margaret Walsh cleared her throat nervously. "Well, that's different circumstances." "How so?" I pressed. "Mrs. Thornfield's business equipment is temporary storage during property transitions, and my medically necessary mobility device is permanently prohibited." "Why exactly?" The metallic taste of adrenaline mixed with 3 years of suppressed anger flooded my mouth. This wasn't about bylaws anymore. This was about power and who got to wield it. Brooklyn couldn't help herself. She jumped up, phone still recording. "Are you seriously comparing Mom's successful business to your little toy truck? She contributes to this community. You're just some angry vet playing victim." The room erupted. Neighbors who'd stayed silent finally found voices, some supporting Brooklyn's privilege, others disgusted by her disrespect. "That toy truck saved my life," I said quietly, but my voice carried. "While you were partying through college on Daddy's money, that machine gave me independence after serving my country." Brooklyn's response sent ice through my veins. "Whatever. I'm literally untouchable in this neighborhood, so your little pity party changes nothing." Daddy made sure of that. Even her mother's supporters shifted uncomfortably. The rough texture of my prosthetic against the chair reminded me why I was fighting. Not for an ATV, but for the right to exist without permission from entitled bullies. The vote was closer than expected. 4-3 to table pending comprehensive review. Translation: they needed time to figure out how to legally screw me without federal civil rights violations. Walking to my car afterward, I overheard the real conversation happening in parking lot shadows. "That was sloppy, Brooklyn," Delilah hissed. "Never admit immunity publicly." "Relax, Mom. What's he gonna do? Sue us? We own half the lawyers in this county." "Just be more careful. There are other ways to handle stubborn residents." Brooklyn giggled. "I know exactly what you mean. Want me to start phase 2? Phase 2. They had a plan, and I'd just become enemy number 1. I drove home through empty streets, desert air carrying the scent of rain and revolution. They thought they'd cornered me with rigged votes and manufactured outrage. What they didn't know, I'd spent 2 tours in Afghanistan learning that the best defense is overwhelming offense, and tomorrow I was going to war. The crunch of gravel under my tires sounded like victory marching closer. Phase 2 started the very next morning. I woke to my phone buzzing with automated HOA violation alerts. 7 separate complaints filed overnight, all anonymous, all targeting me. Loud engine noise at 2 a.m. My ATV was locked in the garage. Chemical spills in my driveway, rainwater from washing my truck. Operating an unlicensed repair shop, changing my own oil apparently qualified. The smell of fresh coffee turned bitter in my mouth as I scrolled through the digital harassment campaign. Each complaint carried a $500 fine, pending investigation. But here's the genius part. Every violation was time-stamped during my VA appointments, with medical staff as witnesses to my absence. Someone was playing 4-dimensional chess while I'd been moving checkers. By noon, 3 security cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned. Not broken. Lenses spray-painted black during the night. Professional work. No fingerprints, no witnesses. The work of someone who'd done this before. That evening, Brooklyn's army invaded Willowbrook. 6 motorcycles roared through our quiet streets like mechanical demons. Music blasting, beer cans flying, burnouts in the community center parking lot. The sound of engines mixed with drunken laughter echoed off every house in the development. I grabbed my phone to record the actual noise violation, unlike my whisper-quiet ATV. But as I stepped outside, Brooklyn spotted me from across the street. "Look, everybody!" she shouted over the chaos. "It's Pegleg Pete, still playing with his little toy truck." Her friends erupted in cruel laughter. One rich frat boy revved his bike. "Should have left both legs in Afghanistan, loser." The metallic taste of rage flooded my mouth, but I kept recording. I called HOA security, knowing exactly what theater would unfold. "Thornfield residents," Delilah answered sweetly. "This is Garrett Steele. There's a noise violation." "Oh, Mr. Steele," her voice dripped fake concern. "I'm not seeing any violations tonight. Perhaps you're having some stress-related episodes. PTSD can cause auditory hallucinations." The line went dead. 2 hours later, as motorcycle exhaust choked our desert air, I made the decision that would end them. I'd learned something crucial during my research that most people never discover. Federal ADA violations carry penalties between $55,000 and $150,000 per incident. More importantly, they're prosecuted by federal agencies that don't care about local political connections. That night, I installed hidden trail cameras around my property. Military surplus, motion-activated, night vision. If Brooklyn wanted war, I'd document every battle. The cameras caught their first prey at 3:47 a.m. Motion alert buzzed my phone. Through night vision feed, I watched Brooklyn creep toward my garage, not stumbling drunk, but moving with practiced stealth. She produced professional lockpicks and worked my garage lock for 12 agonizing minutes. This wasn't teenage rebellion. This was premeditated burglary. When my motion floodlight suddenly blazed, she bolted. But the camera captured everything. Face, tools, criminal intent. I had her dead to rights. The next morning brought unexpected reinforcements. Carlos Vega knocked on my door, nervous as hell. "Mr. Steele, I saw that girl trying to break into your garage last night." "You witnessed it?" "Witnessed it? Man, I've been watching her case your place for weeks. She's planning to steal that ATV." His hands shook as he spoke. "But I can't testify. Thornfield Realty controls maintenance contracts for 6 developments. She destroys me, I lose everything. Another piece clicked into place. Delilah hadn't just bought political immunity. She'd weaponized economic fear to silence witnesses. That afternoon, I visited Meredith Hendricks. At 73, the retired teacher had taught half the neighborhood and feared nobody. "Garrett," she said, pouring coffee in her kitchen, "that family has terrorized this community for 3 years. Brooklyn brags on social media about being untouchable, posts screenshots of her getting away with vandalism because Daddy owns the cops." The smell of homemade cookies couldn't mask my growing fury. "Someone needs to stop them," Meredith continued. Last month, she keyed 3 cars belonging to neighbors who complained about her parties. No consequences. "I'm going to need documentation. Everything you have." Her smile turned predatory. "Honey, I've been keeping records since they moved here. Digital copies, witness statements, even recordings of Delilah threatening other residents." That evening, as Brooklyn's party raged until 4 a.m. without intervention, I sat organizing evidence that would destroy their little kingdom. Trail camera footage, witness statements, financial records proving systematic corruption. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. "Steele?" The voice was young, female, drunk. "This is Brooklyn Thornfield." "What do you want?" "I want you to know something, soldier boy. I'm literally untouchable in this town. Tonight was just the warm-up. Tomorrow, I'm taking your precious little ATV for a joyride, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it." "Is that a threat?" "No, Grandpa, it's a promise. I own this neighborhood, and you're about to learn what happens to people who don't know their place." She hung up, probably too drunk to realize she'd just confessed to planned grand theft auto on a recorded line. I smiled in the darkness. They thought connections made them bulletproof. Tomorrow, they'd discover that federal law doesn't negotiate with entitled brats. Brooklyn's threat wasn't idle boasting. It was a declaration of war. 3 days later, while her parents vacationed in Cabo, she threw the graduation party from hell. 60 drunk college kids invaded Willowbrook like a conquering army, turning our quiet neighborhood into a battlefield. Bass from industrial speakers rattled windows 3 blocks away. The stench of spilled beer mixed with vomit created a toxic cloud that hung over our community like chemical warfare. Broken bottles sparkled across common areas like deadly confetti scattered by explosions. But the real carnage wasn't accidental. I watched through my window as Brooklyn's crew systematically destroyed community property. Sprinkler heads ripped from the ground. Pool furniture hurled into chlorinated water. Graffiti spray-painted across the mailbox cluster with surgical precision. This wasn't partying. This was terrorism with trust funds. When neighbors called security, they got Delilah's voicemail. "Currently out of town. For emergencies, contact local authorities." Translation: "You're alone in enemy territory." Around midnight, Brooklyn spotted me documenting destruction from my driveway. She stumbled over, designer dress torn, makeup smeared like war paint, drunk on privilege and premium vodka. "Still playing Soldier Pete?" she slurred, phone already recording for her social media army. "Look, guys, it's the crazy vet I told you about." Her Instagram live feed exploded with cruel comments. "Peg leg Pete strikes again. Toy soldier needs his binky. Should have stayed in the sandbox." The metallic taste of suppressed fury flooded my mouth, but I kept my camera steady. Every insult, every threat, every moment of their entitled destruction, preserved in digital evidence for prosecutors who don't care about Daddy's golf buddies. "My mom told me all about broken veterans like you," Brooklyn continued, swaying dangerously. "You think the world owes you something because you got hurt playing war." "I'm documenting property damage for insurance purposes," I replied calmly. "Document this," she snarled, grabbing a beer bottle and hurling it at my garage. Glass exploded inches from my head, shards embedding in metal like grenade fragments. "Oops," she giggled for her audience. "Accidents happen when you don't know your place, right guys?" The livestream comments went wild. Her followers ate up every cruel second, but Brooklyn was just getting started. Around 2 a.m., as chaos reached peak destruction, she made her real move. Through my trail cameras, I watched her and 3 frat boy accomplices approach my garage, not stumbling drunk anymore, but moving with predatory precision. One carried professional bolt cutters. Another had a smartphone with security bypass apps. They'd studied my routines, planned this theft like a military operation. "Remember what Daddy said," Brooklyn whispered, loud enough for my hidden microphones. "We were never here. This never happened." My garage lock yielded to their tools in 90 seconds. Professional execution, not amateur hour. Motion sensors triggered floodlights that lit the scene like a stadium. Brooklyn squinted into the glare but didn't retreat. "Just grab the keys," one accomplice urged nervously. "Relax," Brooklyn snapped. "I'm literally untouchable here. Dad owns Judge Watson, Chief Martinez plays golf with him weekly, and half the city council owes us favors." She grabbed my ATV keys from the pegboard like claiming a trophy. "Besides, who believes crazy veterans over respected families?" The engine roared to life, exactly as I'd programmed it. They couldn't know I'd disabled the kill switch remotely, turning my machine into perfect bait. Brooklyn climbed aboard, revving with malicious glee. "This is what happens when nobodies mess with royalty." She tore out in a spray of gravel and arrogance, accomplices scrambling toward getaway cars. But here's what Princess didn't know. Military-grade GPS tracking and cellular cameras were already uploading everything to federal servers she couldn't touch. Every second of Grand Theft Auto documented in courtroom-quality video. As my ATV disappeared carrying its cargo of evidence and stupidity, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Afghanistan. The calm certainty of inevitable victory. My phone buzzed with GPS alerts. Brooklyn was heading toward the country club, probably planning to show off her trophy to more wealthy witnesses. Perfect. The bigger the audience for her crime spree, the more spectacular her federal indictment would be. I opened my laptop and began typing 3 identical emails to the FBI's Civil Rights Division, Federal ADA Enforcement, and Channel 12 News. Subject: Disability hate crime with video evidence. Federal prosecution requested. Brooklyn thought untouchable meant immunity from consequences. Tomorrow, she'd discover that federal agents don't care about local nobility, and combat engineers don't build traps with escape routes. The smell of desert rain carried promises of justice through my open window. Their entitled kingdom was about to become a federal crime scene. The GPS tracker led me down a rabbit hole that changed everything. While Brooklyn paraded my stolen ATV around the country club like a war trophy, I was 3 miles away in the courthouse basement, surrounded by dusty file boxes and the musty smell of decades-old documents that most residents never bother examining. What I found made my hands shake. The first red flag was buried in routine financial reports. Emergency roof repairs billed at $47,000 for work that should have cost $12,000. Pool equipment replacements every 6 months. Security services charging premium rates for guards nobody had ever seen. But the smoking gun was page 47 of our HOA bylaws, highlighted in yellow marker by someone who'd obviously found this before. All contracts exceeding $50,000 annually require competitive bidding with minimum 3 qualified vendors. Delilah's companies had collected $680,000 over 2 years without a single competing bid. The taste of stale courthouse coffee turned bitter as the scope hit me. This wasn't petty HOA tyranny. This was systematic theft from every neighbor who'd ever trusted Thornfield management. I spread the documents across Meredith's kitchen table that afternoon, the smell of her chocolate chip cookies providing strange comfort as we dissected financial crime. "Look at this pattern," she said, pointing with a shaking finger. "Every emergency repair happens right before contract renewals. Every urgent expense requires Thornfield contractors." My cybersecurity buddy Jake had spent the night cross-referencing public records. His findings were devastating. "Garrett, she's running this scam in 23 communities across Arizona. Conservative estimate, $4 million stolen from working families over 5 years. The magnitude hit me like artillery fire. We weren't fighting neighborhood bullies. We were battling organized crime with real estate licenses and political connections. Then Meredith dropped the bombshell that flipped everything. "There's more," she said quietly, pulling out a manila folder thick with papers. "I wasn't just documenting Brooklyn's harassment. I've been feeding information to investigative reporter Cassidy Walsh for months." She handed me printouts of encrypted email exchanges between herself and Channel 12's corruption specialist. "Cassidy's been building a statewide expose on HOA fraud. Your case became her missing puzzle piece, the human face on financial crime." My phone rang before I could process the implications. Unknown number. "Mr. Steele? This is Cassidy Walsh, Channel 12 News. I believe you know Meredith Hendricks." "Yes, ma'am." "Sir, your documentation combined with our 8-month investigation has uncovered the largest HOA fraud scheme in state history. We're coordinating with federal investigators for simultaneous broadcast and arrests. Federal investigators. My stolen ATV had triggered a federal case. The theft incident involving Delilah's daughter? That's now evidence in a multi-jurisdictional investigation. We need your cooperation to complete our exposé. Dumb. The rough texture of Meredith's kitchen table grounded me as reality shifted. Brooklyn's crime spree wasn't just harassment. It was the final piece of evidence investigators needed. What happens next? I asked. Continue normal activities. Let them think they're winning. We go live Friday night with coordinated law enforcement action across multiple counties. That evening, my phone buzzed with Brooklyn's latest taunt. A video of her doing donuts on my ATV outside the country club. Thanks for the donation, soldier boy. Maybe next time you'll know your place. #Untouchable, #Daddy's money. She'd just broadcast Grand Theft Auto to thousands of followers while federal investigators watched. The girl was too arrogant for her own survival. I forwarded the video to Cassidy with one message. Friday can't come soon enough. Her response chilled me. Mr. Steele, prepare for justice served with federal warrants and live television coverage. Your war just became a federal takedown operation. The smell of desert evening air carried promises of victory through my open window. Their untouchable kingdom was about to crumble on national television. Friday was 5 days away. 5 days to orchestrate the perfect trap. I started by recruiting allies who couldn't be bought, intimidated, or silenced. The smell of fresh morning coffee mixed with determination as I made my first call to Carlos Vega. Carlos, I need you to document every overcharged repair job Thornfield's done in the past year. Photos, receipts, everything. His voice shook with excitement. Mr. Steele, I've been waiting 3 years for someone to fight back. I have invoices showing them charging $800 for pool filters that cost $40 wholesale. Next was assembling my technical arsenal. Jake arrived with a duffel bag full of surveillance equipment that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. Military-grade GPS tracker in your ATV's frame, he explained, showing me a device smaller than a matchbox. 30-day battery, real-time location tracking, impossible to detect without dismantling the entire machine. The metallic taste of anticipation flooded my mouth as we installed backup cameras throughout my garage. Hidden in rafters, behind tool cabinets, inside fake electrical boxes, every angle covered with redundant systems. Even if they find and destroy half the cameras, Jake said, adjusting a lens the size of a button, we'll have multiple angles of any theft attempt. But the real genius was the kill switch modification. Instead of simply disabling the ATV, I could now control it remotely through a smartphone app Jake had modified from military drone technology. You can start it, stop it, track it, even limit top speed from anywhere with cell service, he demonstrated. Brooklyn steals your ride? You're in complete control of where it goes. Wednesday brought reinforcements from an unexpected source. Meredith arrived with 5 neighbors I'd never met, all carrying folders thick with evidence. Garrett, she announced proudly, meet the Willowbrook Resistance. There was Janet Torres, whose water damage claim was denied while Thornfield contractors received emergency repair contracts. Bob Mueller, a retired accountant who'd discovered discrepancies in reserve fund calculations. Sarah Kim, whose violation notices stopped mysteriously after she hired Thornfield's landscaping service. We've been documenting everything, Janet said, her voice steady with resolve, waiting for someone brave enough to fight back. The kitchen table disappeared under evidence. Forged inspector reports, inflated contractor bids, email trails showing coordination between board members and Thornfield companies. 3 years of systematic fraud laid bare in black and white. But Cassidy Walsh brought the piece that would make everything federal. Garrett, she said over the phone, we've confirmed Delilah's using HUD housing development funds for personal projects. That makes this wire fraud, money laundering, and federal conspiracy. She explained the timeline. Friday's live broadcast would coincide with coordinated arrests across 4 counties. FBI agents were already positioned, warrants signed, evidence compiled. Your job is simple, Cassidy continued. Let Brooklyn steal your ATV again. We need her caught in the act with federal agents as witnesses. Thursday evening, I made the performance of my lifetime. Standing in my driveway, voice cracking with fake defeat, I called Brooklyn directly. You win, I said, making sure my voice carried to neighbors' windows. I can't fight anymore. The legal bills are crushing me. Aw, poor soldier boy giving up, Brooklyn's voice dripped mock sympathy. Smart choice. Daddy always said you people know when you're beaten. I'm selling the ATV tomorrow to pay my lawyer. Tonight's my last ride to the VA. Perfect. The bait was set. Such a shame, she giggled. Maybe I'll buy it from you for $10. You know, charity for disabled veterans. I hung up, knowing she'd taken the bait completely. That night, as I performed my final equipment checks, the rough texture of my prosthetic against the garage floor reminded me why this fight mattered. Not just for my stolen property, but for every veteran told to accept abuse from entitled bullies. Jake's voice crackled through my earpiece. All cameras active, GPS tracker online, federal surveillance teams in position. Cassidy's van was parked 3 blocks away, satellite uplink ready for live broadcast. FBI agents occupied the coffee shop across from the country club, waiting for Brooklyn's inevitable victory lap. The trap was set with military precision. Multiple redundancies, federal oversight, media documentation, everything needed to end the Thornfield empire in one devastating blow. My phone buzzed with the final text from Agent Martinez. Mr. Steele, tomorrow we turn your neighborhood war into a federal victory. Sleep well. Justice comes at dawn. The smell of desert night air carried promises of vindication through my open garage. Brooklyn thought stealing my ATV again would break my spirit. Tomorrow, she'd discover that combat engineers don't just build machines, we engineer the complete destruction of our enemies. Every bolt tightened, every wire connected, every backup system verified. The perfect trap, waiting for the perfect target. Brooklyn Thornfield was about to become the star of her own federal takedown. Friday morning brought pure desperation from the Thornfield camp. Delilah returned from Cabo to find FBI agents requesting voluntary interviews about HOA financial irregularities. News vans circled Willowbrook like vultures sensing carrion. Neighbors whispered in clusters, pointing at the Thornfield mansion with undisguised satisfaction. The smell of panic mixed with expensive perfume as Delilah made emergency calls from her driveway, voice shrill enough to carry across the desert morning air. I don't care what it costs, she hissed into her phone. Find me dirt on every board member who voted against us. Threaten their property values, their insurance claims, whatever it takes. But Brooklyn? Brooklyn doubled down on arrogance. Her Instagram stories that morning were a masterclass in criminal stupidity. Dad's lawyers will crush these peasants by noon. Hashtag untouchable family, hashtag fake news, hashtag daddy's money. She posted videos of my stolen ATV parked in their circular driveway like a trophy, captioned, "Spoils of war. Poor soldier boy learned his place." Each post was automatically screenshotted by federal monitoring software, building an evidence file that would make prosecutors weep with joy. Around noon, Delilah attempted damage control through bribery. I watched from my kitchen window as she visited 3 board members' houses, carrying manila envelopes thick with cash or documents. The metallic taste of disgust filled my mouth as respected neighbors sold their integrity for property tax breaks and contractor kickbacks. Emergency board meeting tonight, she announced via community email. Final resolution of the steel violation issue. Translation: they were voting to seize my property before federal investigations could proceed. But Brooklyn's psychological warfare escalated beyond simple theft. That afternoon, she organized a harassment parade. 6 luxury cars filled with college friends slowly circled my house, music blasting, passengers shouting insults through open windows. "Peg Leg Pete's garage sale," they chanted. "Everything must go." The sound of cruel laughter mixed with expensive engine noise created a symphony of entitled malice. Neighbors watched from behind curtains, afraid to intervene but clearly disgusted. Brooklyn live-streamed the entire spectacle, her followers flooding comments with military mockery. "Should have stayed in the sandbox. Toy soldier needs his mommy. PTSD much?" The rough texture of my prosthetic pressing against the window frame reminded me that this wasn't just harassment. It was targeted abuse of a disabled veteran, federal hate crime territory. Then Brooklyn made the mistake that would end everything. Around 4 p.m., she posted a TikTok video standing beside my stolen ATV. "Tonight, I'm taking this baby for one last joyride before Daddy's lawyers make the crazy vet disappear forever. Wanna watch? Country club, sunset, bring popcorn. Hashtag untouchable life." She'd just announced her intention to commit federal crimes on live social media. Agent Martinez texted immediately, "Perfect. All units positioned for 6 p.m. interdiction. Continue normal activities." The emergency board meeting was pure theater. Delilah had packed the community center with 30 supporters, real estate agents, contractors, country club cronies who'd never lived in Willowbrook but somehow voted on our community issues. "Ladies and gentlemen," Delilah announced, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences, "we're here to address a dangerous resident who threatens our property values and community safety." She clicked through slides showing my ATV, my garage, even photos of me taken without consent during VA appointments. "This individual has ignored multiple violation notices, threatened board members, and created a hostile environment for families." Pure projection. She was describing her own behavior while painting me as the aggressor. The vote was predetermined, 7-2, to authorize immediate property seizure for community safety. But as board members signed the seizure order, my phone buzzed with the sweetest notification I'd ever received. "Cassidy Walsh. Going live in T-2 hours. Federal agents have visual confirmation of your ATV at Country Club. Brooklyn currently bragging to patrons about owning disabled veterans. This is about to be beautiful." Walking home through twilight desert air that smelled like justice and sage, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Afghanistan. The calm certainty of absolute victory. Brooklyn was at the Country Club, surrounded by witnesses, bragging about federal crimes while FBI agents watched from the parking lot. Delilah was in her mansion, celebrating a Pyrrhic victory while federal prosecutors finalized RICO indictments. Their untouchable empire was 60 minutes from complete destruction on live television. The rough gravel beneath my feet sounded like freedom marching closer. Tonight, the Thornfield Kingdom would fall with the entire nation watching. 6 p.m. arrived with biblical timing. The Country Club's pristine parking lot buzzed with Friday evening activity, wealthy families arriving for dinner, golf carts humming across manicured lawns, the gentle splash of money mixing with chlorinated water from the pool deck. Brooklyn held court on the clubhouse terrace, my stolen ATV positioned like a throne beneath string lights that cast golden shadows across her entitled kingdom. A dozen college friends surrounded her, phones recording every moment of what they thought was victory. The smell of expensive steaks grilling mixed with the metallic scent of approaching justice as FBI surveillance teams moved into position. "Check this out, guys," Brooklyn announced to her audience, revving my ATV's engine. "This is what happens when nobody's try to mess with royalty." Her Instagram live feed exploded with viewer comments. Over 3,000 people watching her commit federal crimes in real time, completely unaware that half the random servers and parking attendants were federal agents with recording equipment. Agent Martinez's voice crackled through my earpiece. "All units in position. Subject is broadcasting federal evidence to thousands of witnesses. Maintain distance until interdiction." Inside Cassidy Walsh's news van, parked behind landscaping that screened us from Country Club security, monitors showed multiple camera angles of Brooklyn's performance. The smell of electronic equipment mixed with nervous sweat as her production crew prepared for the broadcast that would end the Thornfield empire. 30 seconds to airtime, Cassidy whispered, adjusting her microphone. "Garrett, this is your moment. 3 years of abuse ends tonight." Brooklyn cranked the volume on her victory celebration, apparently believing her father's emergency injunction had permanently silenced any investigations. Her voice carried across the parking lot like a confession at a revival meeting. "My dad always told me," she slurred, obviously drunk on premium champagne and untouchable privilege. "There are two kinds of people in this world, winners like us, and losers like that pathetic vet." She gestured broadly toward Willowbrook, nearly falling off my ATV in the process. "Tonight we celebrate putting another uppity soldier in his place. Daddy's lawyers got the investigation killed, the board voted to seize his property, and I get to keep my new toy." The metallic taste of vindication flooded my mouth. She'd just confessed to federal conspiracy on live social media. "This is Channel 12 News, with breaking coverage of what appears to be the largest HOA fraud investigation in Arizona history," Cassidy announced as cameras rolled. "We're live outside the Scottsdale Country Club, where federal agents are preparing to arrest suspects in a multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme." Brooklyn's celebration hit peak arrogance at exactly 6:47 p.m. "Want to see something hilarious?" She giggled to her phone camera, steering my ATV in tight circles around the terrace. "I'm literally about to take this stolen ride for a victory lap through the golf course. What's that disabled loser gonna do? Limp after me?" Her followers' comments turned vicious. "Run over some golf carts. Make him crawl to get it back." PTSD tears taste delicious. That's when Agent Martinez gave the signal every federal agent had been waiting for. All units, target is in motion with stolen federal evidence. Execute interdiction now. The coordinated takedown unfolded like military choreography. 6 unmarked vehicles materialized from various parking areas, emergency lights blazing red and blue against the golden sunset. FBI agents emerged from landscaping, server positions, even the golf cart maintenance shed, a dozen professionals who'd been watching Brooklyn's crime spree for hours. Federal agents, stop the vehicle immediately! Brooklyn's face transformed from arrogant glee to pure terror in the span of a heartbeat. The rough sound of gravel spraying from my ATV's tires mixed with her panicked screaming as she tried to flee toward the golf course. But here's where my remote kill switch became poetry in motion. With a single button press on Jake's modified app, my ATV's engine died completely. Brooklyn coasted 30 feet before coming to a stop directly in front of Agent Martinez, surrounded by federal agents with weapons drawn. "Brooklyn Thornfield," Martinez announced clearly for the cameras. "You're under arrest for federal civil rights violations, grand theft auto, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud." The click of handcuffs echoed across the country club like church bells announcing salvation. But I'm untouchable!" Brooklyn screamed, struggling against restraints. "My daddy owns this town. You can't arrest me." "Miss Thornfield," Agent Martinez replied calmly, "your daddy's in federal custody too. RICO charges don't recognize local immunity." Cassidy's cameras captured every moment as Brooklyn's entitled kingdom crumbled in real time. Her Instagram live feed continued streaming, 3,000 viewers watching their untouchable princess led away in federal handcuffs. The smell of desert evening air carried the sweetest scent I'd ever experienced, justice served with a side of public humiliation. Their war against one disabled veteran had become a federal victory for every bullied resident in America. The arrest at the country club was just the opening act. As FBI agents loaded Brooklyn into their unmarked sedan, her live stream still broadcasting to shocked viewers, Agent Martinez received radio confirmation that sent electricity through the air. "All targets in custody. Execute Phase 2. The real climax was happening 3 miles away at the Thornfield mansion. Cassidy's news crew raced through Willowbrook's winding streets, emergency lights flashing as residents emerged from homes to witness history. The smell of desert evening mixed with anticipation as neighbors who'd suffered 3 years of tyranny gathered to watch justice arrive with federal warrants. Delilah's circular driveway was already surrounded by FBI vehicles when we arrived. Agents in bulletproof vests systematically loaded boxes of evidence from her home office, computers, financial records, 3 years of fraudulent contracts that would fuel RICO prosecutions across multiple states. But Delilah herself stood defiant on her marble steps, diamond jewelry glittering under television lights, still believing money and connections trumped federal law. "This is harassment," she screamed at Agent Martinez, her voice shrill enough to shatter crystal. "I have rights. I know Judge Watson personally." "Mrs. Thornfield," Martinez replied calmly, "Judge Watson recused himself this morning. Federal judges don't play golf with subjects of RICO investigations." The metallic taste of absolute victory filled my mouth as Delilah's face cracked with the realization that her political shields had evaporated. That's when the crowd of neighbors began to gather. Carlos Vega emerged from his truck carrying a folder thick with overcharged documentation. Meredith Hendricks walked slowly across the street, her evidence files clutched like weapons of mass destruction. Janet Torres, Bob Mueller, Sarah Kim, every resident who'd been silenced by economic threats or political intimidation. "Agent Martinez," Meredith announced loudly enough for news cameras, "we have additional evidence of Mrs. Thornfield's criminal enterprise." She handed over 3 years of meticulously documented violations, forged inspection reports, intimidated witnesses, financial fraud spanning 23 HOA communities. "This woman has terrorized working families while stealing millions of dollars," Meredith continued, her teacher's voice carrying absolute authority. "She weaponized HOA bylaws to silence anyone who questioned her corruption." Delilah's desperation reached peak pathetic as handcuffs approached. "You don't understand," she pleaded with gathering neighbors. "I built this community. I protected your property values. Without me, this place becomes a ghetto." Classic Karen behavior. When caught red-handed, blame the victims. Carlos stepped forward, his work-roughened hands steady as granite. "Lady, You charged us $800 for $40 pool filters while calling my family undesirable residents. You tried to evict the Henderson family because their son's military uniform lowered neighborhood aesthetics, Janet added. The crowd's murmur grew into righteous anger as 3 years of suppressed grievances erupted into public testimony. But the moment that broke, Delilah completely came when Agent Martinez read the charges. Delilah Thornfield, you're under arrest for conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, civil rights violations, and racketeering under federal RICO statutes. The words RICO hit her like a physical blow. RICO meant federal prison, asset forfeiture, the complete destruction of her real estate empire. But Brooklyn, she whispered, mascara streaming down her cheeks. What about my daughter? Your daughter is in federal custody facing identical charges plus grand theft auto and disability hate crimes, Martinez replied without emotion. Her social media confessions provided excellent evidence. That's when I stepped forward for my mic drop moment. The crowd parted as I walked slowly toward Delilah, my prosthetic clicking against marble steps with each deliberate step. Television lights illuminated the scene like a courthouse drama as I stopped directly in front of the woman who'd made 3 years of my life miserable. Mrs. Thornfield, I said quietly, my voice carrying across the silent crowd. You told me disabled veterans should know our place. I gestured toward the FBI agents, the federal charges, the complete destruction of her criminal empire. This is our place, standing up to bullies who think money makes them untouchable. The rough texture of my prosthetic reminded me of every VA appointment I'd missed because of her harassment, every night I'd lost sleep to her family's cruelty. Your daughter called herself untouchable, I continued, louder now. How do those federal handcuffs feel? The crowd erupted in applause that echoed off mansion walls like thunder announcing the end of a 3-year storm. As federal agents led Delilah away in handcuffs, her designer heels clicking against concrete for the last time, Cassidy Walsh delivered the perfect closing line for her live broadcast. Tonight in Willowbrook Estates, we've witnessed the complete federal takedown of a family that believed wealth and connections placed them above the law. For Channel 12 News, this has been justice served with a side of sweet, sweet karma. The smell of desert freedom mixed with victory as their untouchable kingdom crumbled on national television. 6 months later, Willowbrook Estates looked like a completely different community. The federal trials were swift and devastating. Brooklyn received 18 months for grand theft, civil rights violations, and conspiracy, most of it served in minimum security, but her social media empire collapsed overnight when major platforms banned her for disability harassment. Her untouchable status became unemployable toxicity. Delilah got the full federal treatment. 5 years for RICO violations, permanent forfeiture of her real estate licenses, and restitution orders totaling $4.2 million across 23 defrauded communities. But the real victory wasn't their punishment. It was our community's resurrection. Emergency board elections swept out every Thornfield loyalist, replacing them with neighbors who actually lived in Willowbrook. Carlos Vega was elected president, his first act establishing transparent financial reporting and competitive bidding for all contracts. The savings were immediate and dramatic. Pool maintenance costs dropped 60%. Emergency repairs ended completely. Our HOA fees decreased by $40 monthly while service quality improved across every category. My ATV, returned as federal evidence, became something unexpected, a symbol of standing up to institutional bullying. Neighbors stopped me during morning rides to share their own stories of workplace harassment, municipal corruption, family dysfunction, where wealthy relatives wielded money like weapons. You showed us that fighting back works, Meredith told me over coffee in her kitchen that still smelled like chocolate chip cookies and community healing. Even when they seem untouchable, even when they control all the power, good people can still win. The community benefit project we created with recovered embezzlement funds exceeded my wildest dreams. The Willowbrook Veterans Memorial Garden opened on Memorial Day, featuring benches donated by grateful neighbors, walking paths accessible to every disability, and a therapeutic workshop where veterans could rebuild lives through building projects. The smell of desert wildflowers mixed with fresh lumber as disabled vets from across Arizona gathered for our first adaptive engineering workshop. Teaching other veterans to modify ATVs, wheelchairs, and mobility devices became my new mission. Therapy through technical empowerment. Garrett Steele didn't just recover his stolen property, Cassidy Walsh reported during our 6-month follow-up story. He sparked a statewide movement against HOA corruption that's led to federal legislation requiring transparent financial reporting and competitive bidding in all community associations. The Steele Act became shorthand for federal protection against disability discrimination in housing communities. Letters arrived weekly from veterans facing similar harassment, sharing stories of HOA bullies backing down when presented with federal civil rights documentation. But the sweetest victory was personal healing. That morning 6 months ago, I'd been a broken veteran hiding in his garage, building machines to escape community cruelty. Today, I was teaching other veterans to build independence while serving as Willowbrook's official disability liaison. The rough texture of my prosthetic no longer reminded me of limitations. It symbolized resilience, adaptation, and the refusal to accept abuse from entitled bullies. My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Martinez. "Mr. Steele, wanted you to know the Thornfield investigation has expanded nationwide. Your case became the template for federal HOA fraud prosecution. Thank you for your service, both overseas and here at home." That afternoon, as I worked in the Memorial Garden teaching a young Marine to modify his wheelchair for desert terrain, the smell of sage and possibility filled the air. Brooklyn's final Instagram post, made from federal detention, was a public apology that her lawyers obviously wrote. "I sincerely regret my actions toward Mr. Steele and the Willowbrook community. I was raised with privilege that blinded me to others' struggles. I hope to earn forgiveness through community service and genuine change." The comments section was brutal. Her former followers had turned completely, sharing stories of their own encounters with entitled bullies who thought money bought immunity from consequences. Justice served, community healed, lessons learned. As desert sunset painted Willowbrook's peaceful streets gold, I realized something profound. Combat engineers don't just build bridges and remove obstacles. Sometimes we build movements that span entire communities, teaching ordinary people that extraordinary courage lives inside everyone willing to fight institutional corruption.
You know what's really satisfying? Watching Brooklyn Thornfield get laid away in federal handcuffs in front of 3,000 people on her own live stream. Especially right after she said, "I'm literally untouchable," seconds before the FBI moved in. Garrett didn't just get his $12,000 ATV back, he brought down their entire $4.2 million fraud empire. Della thought controlling both the HOA board and the contractor network would cover her tracks forever. But recall, judges don't care which judge you play golf with. Truth is, this was never about that ATV. This was about the people with small town power thinking they could bully a disabled veteran without consequences. They forgot that soldiers know how to be patient, know how to plan, and how to fight when it matters. This story makes me wonder, in your HOA, how many delegates are sitting on the board right now? How many contracts get signed without competitive buying? And most importantly, when they push you far, what are you gonna do about it? If this story got you thinking about your own neighborhood, hit that like button. Subscribe for more HOA stories where truth is really stranger than fiction. And share this one because sometimes people need to know that untouchable is just an illusion. Because at the end of the day, real power doesn't come from money or connection. It comes from knowing the law and having the guts to use it.